guys, welcome to my map proposal. I'm doing my proposal on friendship. I chose this practice because it's been an interesting concept to me as of late. I've moved back and forth across the country, and every time I move, the community I find myself in has gotten better and better. Throughout my life, my friends have been my primary source of community and support. And as I continue to mature and follow Christ, I anticipate that this trend will continue. My reasons for moving have been for jobs and school, typical reasons, and that are reasons that our society approves of. But what precedes these moves has always been some sort of friendship or relationship that had I not had, I wouldn't have moved in the first place. Also, as I continue to follow Jesus, my family has not been the place of my primary support, nor have I found a spouse. So I have been kind of forced to create friendships to survive and thrive in this crazy world. I've had 10 years of adult experiencing navigating this friendship scene, which doesn't sound like a lot of learning how to do in the life, but I'm learning how to navigate the neglected gap of friendship. And generally, in my unresearched, or anecdotal opinion, when people think about relationships in America, they think of the biological family or a significant other spouse. There's a lot of emphasis on the nuclear family unit and whether or not one survived it, or the emphasis is placed on who you're going to marry and how to make that relationship work. But there's not much emphasis on the relationship group in the middle that includes and overlaps the family and the spousal relationship, which is friendship. And also, when I think about Jesus and his ministry, his entire ministerial context was done in this neglected category. He chose his disciples, and he was neither related to nor married to any of them. He lived and did ministry solely in the context of friendship, and he even changed the definition of family to include his friends. In Matthew 12, it says, while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brother stood outside wanting to speak to him. Jesus said, who are my mothers and brothers? Pointing to his disciples, he said, here are my mothers and brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. See, Jesus redefines family to include the people who cannot be defined by biology or covenantal contract. So my goal of this presentation is to not focus on this redefinition of family, but suggest that the practice of friendship needs much more attention than what our society and the church currently give it. It's also to shed light on the power of the practice of friendship as it was in the context of this dynamic that Jesus walked out his entire ministry. So it's to shed light on this neglected gap and to teach others how to engage their life through the lens of friendship and how to follow Christ through this context. I want to dialogue with people about what it means to think relationally when making ministry and life decisions rather than the typical constructs we use right now, such as like vocational calling. Usually it's we move to the place we feel called to or the company that we have the job in, but it's not necessarily the people we're called to. We don't necessarily make decisions based on friendship. We may make big decisions based on our family of origin or our spousal family. But if you're not in that category, how to make decisions relationally is a whole other ballgame. So for my contact hours, I created a qualitative survey to measure friendship. So what I noticed is that for all the friends we have and all the talk that we talk about friendship, it's not a concept that's regularly reflected upon or defined in an individual life. We're taught at a young age how to make friends, and we figure out the rest from there. So I asked 10 people 17 questions about friendship. The survey components included a definition of friendship, how friendship was modeled growing up, the role of friendship in physical, vocational goals as well as spiritual goals, and finally, survey respondents were asked to discuss how they saw the role of friendship in the church, religion, and in the most difficult season of their life. Just a couple survey highlights. What was interesting is the first question was, how do you define friendship? It took a while for most people to formulate a response. Again, it's a dynamic we live in all the time, yet we don't specifically pay much attention to what it actually means for us. So, but generally, definitions include people who mutually care for and are there for each other in a variety of ways. Another thing I thought was interesting is how people responded to the question, how was friendship modeled? Most of them said it was modeled through their parents. Kids look at how their parents and older siblings interact with their friends, and that informs their initial expectations. So, I mean, it makes sense. We learn a lot of our behaviors from our parents growing up, and so it would make sense that how we saw our parents have friends and our siblings have friends informed the way that maybe we saw have friends. Again, my survey size is a sample of 10, so all of this is mostly anecdotal, but interesting food for thought. When people describe what it meant to them to have people that they call friends, these were some profound answers. Statements like, it means I'm not alone. It means my friends give my life meaning. It means I am wanted. It means I'm loved and I have value. It means I have safe spaces to go. I found this profound because they weren't talking about faith, they weren't talking about church, they weren't talking about Jesus directly, but the very language they were using are the concepts that we've been preaching from the pulpit for the last 2,000 years. Only one of them mentioned that friendship is how God models his love for us, which I think we would all agree. But just the concept of friendship in and of itself has been powerful to demonstrate to people what we teach from a theological kind of perspective. Okay, the last question that blew me away when I asked it is, what would happen to someone's spiritual journey had they not had friends? Most of the people that I surveyed were Christian, but a couple weren't. So they were kind of more just sort of generally open to spirituality. 8 out of 10 people said they would have given up on God and would have given up seeking the truth a long time ago. 2 others said they would have plateaued without friends and their spirituality would have been stagnant and then eventually would have been lost. So essentially, 100% of my respondents said that without friends, they would have walked away from the faith. I agree, and that's one of my answers. So friendship is really important. If without faith, or if without friendship, faith would die. And think about your own journey. If without friendship, faith would essentially die. How much more important is friendship in the creation of faith and creation of that journey? So my proposal is focusing on this area. So specifically to church administration and church leaders. I would love to conduct a seminar that includes education and training about friendship. The challenge and dilemma is that friendship can't be forced. You can't make people sit in a small group and expect them to become friends. It's a very long process. It can be a very slow process, and if there's any trauma or distrust involved, it can be a long time. So it's kind of a catch-22. I want to focus on friendship, but I can't create friendship. I can't make people be friends as much as we try to make little 5-year-olds be friends. It just doesn't necessarily work with adults. But I do think that highlighting this neglected gap of friendship, especially linking it to context of Jesus's ministry and even what he says about the power and strength of our weakness, I think would be phenomenal in a church setting. So, for example, elements would include health and mental benefits of relationships or friendships. So, from a scientific perspective, we know that when human beings are in, close relationships, one another, stress levels drop, all the good hormones go up. We are resilient. So, for example, a child who's experienced significant trauma, the presence of one solid friendship relationship is enough to keep that child alive, to give them resilience, to give them the opportunity to be strong, to have self-worth. Um, and so friendship is just a very powerful model of human resiliency. I'd also talk about the theology of friendship, which is something that I haven't quite heard much about. So even in our readings that focus on friendship, I found it a little lacking just in terms of a focus on like servanthood and service, or ministering to another culture, but it wasn't specifically about the context of believers' friendship. So I would hope that the readings were implying that, when a missionary goes overseas, that their first goal is to generally make friends before attempting to share the gospel. And I would rather see the emphasis on friendship be placed first. Because how can we truly communicate the gospel of Christ if it's detached from the friendship context? I think it's just a very different way of doing things, and especially if you go back and look at what Jesus said and how he did everything with his friends, and in context. And his prayers were about his followers being one, and their greatest witness is, the world will know you're my disciples by how you love one another. It is really difficult to love people if you're not friends with them first. On the other hand, if you are genuinely good friends with someone, you can love them a lot, more than you ever thought possible. For example, I have this great group of friends, and we've been friends for a while, and lately they've been opening up about really tough things they've gone through, and so they're telling me things that previously I would have been like super judgy and, don't do that. But because I truly, dearly love them as friends, I mean, there's no way I'm not going to love them. And it also helps me see that they can see my stuff and they still love me, which is exactly what Jesus wants us to do. So if it's hard to love someone, be their friend first. Anyway, so I'm going on and on. So the seminar would include health and mental benefits of friendship, the theology of friendship, and the benefits of friendship in healing trauma. I went over that a little bit. So the initial seminar is for the church congregation. It would include kind of what I just described, along with them taking the friendship survey. It would be qualitative and also quantitative, and it would obviously change. But so it would kind of just be a tool used to really have them to reflect on what does it mean for them to have friends. How has friendship played a role in their life? I feel like when people look at their friendships, it gives them a really good barometer of how they're doing spiritually or how connected they feel. Sometimes if someone doesn't feel connected to the church, it's because they're not connected with friends. So that's what the survey tool would be designed for. So I imagine like a one-day seminar, lunch included. Again, not to force. So I'm not trying to force people to become friends with each other. Hopefully, a very healthy church body will highlight the importance of friendship, and allow congregants to sort of create and invest in the friendships that they already have. The second part of my seminar includes training for pastors and administrative staff. This is going to help them discover the state of their own friendships, and how to focus on teachings in the context of friendship for their congregates. What's also interesting, so friendship can be really hard to come by in staff. When I was on staff, it seems like the higher up you go to like senior pastor level, the harder it is for them to have robust friendships outside of their immediate family. So again, there's so much focus on the nuclear family unit, which isn't bad, but the friendship piece, the strength and the power that God has inherently designed into the friendship piece gets very neglected. Many pastors don't necessarily feel like they have a solid group of like close friends that they're safe with. And that is hugely problematic for burnout, for the host of sort of the things that pastors are up against in terms of having them to be healthy and vibrant individuals and followers of Jesus still, and great family members. That friendship piece, without it, we're setting up our pastors to fail, in my blunt therapeutic opinion of what I've seen and research, what I've experienced on my own staff, and just in talking with people who've been in ministry. This friendship is a really crucial piece, and I think it's something that has to be modeled. You can't teach someone how to be good friends, but you can show them how to be good friends. So that is the nuts and bolts of my proposal. Thank you for being with me. Part of it is a little ranty because this is a very it's really on my mind. So learning how to think relationally means that right now, as I'm not near my family of origin and I'm not currently married, the decisions that I make about where I'm going to go to school, what state I'm going to be licensed in, I am running those decisions through the context of relational living, and looking at the context of Jesus. And so it's a very different way of thinking than I have thought before, but it's powerful and discombobulating, but it's really great. So for more on that, then let me know. So anyway, thanks for watching and listening, and love to hear your feedback. Thanks.